everyone, and welcome to this edition of Phillies Talk. It's Phillies Talk Podcast, just a couple days before the World Series is starting here on October 26th. My name is Rich Baxter, and I'm joined by my good friend Matt Veasey, a co-host of Phillies Talk. How you doing, Matt?
Good afternoon, Rich. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Very excited. I have the Phillies fever, so to speak.
Yeah, I think everybody in the Delaware Valley does, and everywhere in Phillies land across the United States and around the world.
Yeah, I just saw a map of the United States I got from Las Vegas. One of the guys that stays in touch with me with odds and things like that. And most of the country, about 80%, believe it or not, are rooting for the Phillies. Just a small pocket in and around Texas are actually rooting for the Astros, according to what they've monitored on social media.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. And then, a lot of that comes from the, I don't know what they were calling it, Astrogate or whatever, where the Astros allegedly, whatever you want to say, cheated, in winning their World Series championship. What was it, about 5 years ago now? But so the organization, and even though there's only maybe 3 or 4 players left from that team, the organization was tainted by that whole fiasco and cost them manager and GM. It cost them draft picks. So, they did pay a certain price, but they still have that World Series flag too. That taint, that stigma has stayed with the organization. Exactly. I saw a guy today on Twitter in response to that, put something out, something ridiculous. A pro Houston guy put something out about how, you Philly fans don't have anything to talk about because this fella here cheated, this fella here cheated for the Phillies back in 1900, Rich. The guy's been dead for like 80 years. And this idiot was bringing that up like it's relevant, to what the Astros just did 5 years ago. So, they're trying, to defend themselves there, I guess, by saying you're not good either. That's that old argument. Nobody's a saint. But who really cares? This is Philly, right? So we were always like, nobody likes us, we don't care. My response to that poll this morning was, everybody likes us, we don't care. So.
And I'm so glad you just said that, because the other night I was at one of the playoff games on Saturday night, I believe it was, or Sunday, I forget. It's all running into the next one day for me, but they actually showed a picture on the Jumbotron, or whatever they call it now, the Fanavision, of Santa Claus, and they applauded him. They did not boo him. I was like, oh, thank God they didn't boo him.
And it's another issue that I addressed. Actually, there was all this talk about who's going to throw out the first pitches, for games 3, 4, and 5. And it's been the 2008 World Series guys so far, in this run. I think they had Matt Stairs threw it out one game, Jason Worth threw it out one game, Ryan Howard. It was the first person that they had throw out. Shane Victorino, right, the Hawaiian. So they've had, the 2008 guys so far, and there's been a lot of speculation. Fans, of course, were saying, we got to have Chase Utley or Brad Lidge or Carlos Ruiz or whoever, popular guys. But I was like, have Santa Claus throw out one of the games. National television, this is a missed opportunity. If they don't have Santa Claus throw out a first pitch and have the fans like roar standing ovation for Santa, we do not hate Santa in Philadelphia.
No,
so maybe we threw a snowball at him once. So what?
Yeah, exactly. We're paying for that quite a bit, even on social media these days. But it was nice to see the applause last night. And just to recap, the exciting NLCS, the last couple games were just a dream. The game that I was at, it was Saturday night's game. It was phenomenal. It was one of the best games I've ever seen. The Phillies just had so much fight in them. They wouldn't give up. They were down. They came back. They were down. They came back, and they just wouldn't lose. And probably close to the same thing on Sunday.
Yeah, well, of course, the capper being the fantastic home run by Bryce Harper. That's going to be an unforgettable Philadelphia sports memory going forward now. We have so many of them. The fans like you and I, who've been following the team for decades, we going back to the 70s teams in 1980, and probably older fans, even back to 64. But we certainly have, and fans who are of our age have tons of highlight memories in our banks, and this is going to be added to it. But for fans of another certain age, younger fans, this home run by Bryce Harper is going to be something that they never forget. They're going to be remembering it 30, 40, 50, long after you and me are dead and gone. Yeah. That's going to be a major memory in their memory banks. The way you say you and I might remember Schmidt's home run in Montreal to clinch the 1980 NL East championship, or Lazinski's big home run in Game 1 of that league championship series, or any of the big hits from that 1980 postseason. Are still ingrained, in our memory banks. This one's going to be ingrained in these fans' memory banks 30, 40 years from now.
And one of the great things about the Phillies making it to the World Series is it generates that big nostalgia machine again. It generates books being written about the team. I still have a bookcase of books from 2008 when they won the World Series, in 2009 when they got into the World Series. The press writers inevitably come up with a book, and we'll see the same thing this year for sure after the series. And it just generates that whole history aspect again. Just a tremendous amount of research and things that may have been forgotten over the years, players here and there. Mr. Paul Kurtz wrote a book. He works for KYW News, and that was an interesting book. I had him on a Phillies Talk a few years ago, and I think it was something like Imagine the Phillies 162-0, something like that, a perfect season. And he went through each day of the season with a specific game which the Phillies won, and it just went the whole gamut. So looking forward to that, and just the hoopla that surrounds the World Series, all the attention that gets towards baseball. One of my good friends contacted me. He's like, maybe they shouldn't play on Sunday because it's the NFL day. No, if you're a baseball fan, you're not gonna watch football during this time, and it's 8:03 p.m. in the Eastern. You're not going.
Fortunately, Rich, they're not playing on Sunday. They play on Friday and Saturday night. Sunday's an off day,
yeah, no
so
weekend.
We don't have to worry about it. Sunday is an off day. It's Friday and Saturday night in Houston. Sunday we can enjoy the Eagles game in peace, and then it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here,
right?
And then the Eagles play again on Thursday night football on another off day.
Oh, so
it falls great for us.
It's programmed like that. I didn't even realize that when he texted me earlier in the week. He's like, they shouldn't be playing on the weekend. I'm like, it's baseball, like football doesn't own the world. To him, it does. Yeah. He's a huge football fan.
And Saturday night, there are some college football games going on still, but the bulk of the college football action is Saturday afternoon. So, they're really it's set up great for the World Series. Friday, Saturday night. Leave the NFL to Sunday, and then they'll have Monday, Tuesday night, and possibly Wednesday night here in Philly.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before the show started, and again, what a great NLCS that was. I wish we could have done a whole show just on that, but this is sort of like the World Series preview show, and the Phillies named their opening starter today, who's going to start this all off for us on Friday night, as you said. Aaron Nola tapped to start off the World Series for the Phillies.
Yeah, not really surprising, Rich. When you look at things, Wheeler pitched the last game, this deciding game of the NLCS, and he was fantastic. If you did map out the game, though, and I'm going to chalk up a lot of this to this was his first game in this postseason where he was actually getting to pitch at home. and that fans had to be jacking him up. You were seeing him fire 98, 99 first couple of innings, and then it was like each inning after that, his fastball velocity was dropping by a mile per hour, maybe 2 or 3 miles per hour by the time he started getting hit a little bit when he was removed. But Wheeler pitched a fantastic game. If he would have started game one, he would be on normal rest. However, when he's been given extra rest during the season, he's been even better. So, meanwhile, Nola hasn't pitched in a while now. So, Nola will be starting game one on extra rest as well. So, this is really, I think it's a smart baseball decision by Thompson and the powers that be with the Phillies. And, Nola and Wheeler were getting 1-2 anyway in some order or another. So it doesn't surprise me a whole heck of a lot. I'm looking for Aaron to come out and pitch a great game. And then we'll have Wheeler on extra rest for game two. So, if something, unfortunate happens in game one, we have our ace all primed and ready with extra rest in game two to hopefully even things up and bring it back here to Philly. And if we get a strong game from Aaron and the offense comes through, that's what we're looking for. It's been the recipe so far, right, Rich? Yeah. Win game one on the road, put the pressure on the other team, and know that we're coming back to Philly with at least one win. So it's got to be the same recipe here.
Yep. And Wheeler, very dominant in the postseason. 4 starts, posting a 1.78 ERA, 25 strikeouts over 25 and 1/3 innings. So, as you said, he's been everything that you could hope for when the Phillies signed him and more. Just awesome. Aaron Nola, same thing. Even though he faltered his last start, he got hit around a little late. I think he maybe should have been taken out of that game before he got hit, but hindsight's always 20/20. But if it were me, I would have been out there before he pitched to Juan Soto, and Soto wouldn't have hit it off of him, I'll tell you. He might have hit it off of someone else, but it just seemed like he was out of gas at that point to me. And I guess, Thompson left him in and happened how it happened. But
certainly an argument for that, Rich. Certainly an argument for what you say there. It's always a judgment call. The manager's, the one that's got his, quote, finger on the pulse down there. And I know that these big league managers sometimes give their horses, their ace starting pitchers, and every manager does it. I've seen it happen all across Major League Baseball in the regular season and during the postseason and in the biggest games, is that they give their ace, their veteran, their horse, a little too much respect sometimes. To go, hey, he's the guy, he's our guy. I'm going to give him a little extra leeway, more than you might give a Ranger Suarez or a Noah Syndergaard or somebody like that. And then sometimes it burns you, Rich. A lot of times, no matter what the name is on the back of the jersey, it burns the guy. So I think it's hard, I would guess. I'm not the one in the dugout there, but it's hard to make that decision to say, I'm going to go out now. A guy like Rob Thompson, who's been around this long, has to feel like has to be thinking along the lines the way you were, has to be thinking, is it time to go get him? And there's probably the little angel on his shoulder and the devil on his shoulder, and the one saying, I really think I should take him out. I really think I should take him out. But then the other shoulder, he's saying, this is our guy, I got to give him a chance, Yeah. This time of year, you don't have to give anybody a chance. This time of year, if it's me, I'm going to go with my gut. What does my gut say? I don't care who the player is. What does my gut say? If my gut says get Nick Castellanos out of there in the 5th inning, or get Rhys Hoskins out of there in the 5th inning and put Matt Vierling in there in right field, or put somebody else in at first base. If that's what my gut is telling me based on what I'm seeing and feeling, you can't just say, I got to give him a chance. because otherwise you're going to be like, what are you going to say afterwards when it fails? You're going to say, well, I danced with the one that brung me. Well, you're getting paid as the manager to make those difficult decisions, not to just robotically, put out the same people in the same places all the time. Just say it dancing with the one that brung me. So I appreciate respect, and I appreciate Thompson, to an extent in that regard. But you can't be afraid, to follow your gut and to follow what your decades of experience are telling you, what your eyes are seeing in a given moment.
Yeah, and to get back to the Vegas connection again, the Houston Astros are favored. They broke out at a minus 185 in Las Vegas there, and across the country wherever there's legal sports betting, including New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But the Phillies may be a bargain at plus 150 if you're in the mood to place a wager down on the Phillies. And how about this stat, Matt? For example, before the season started or as the season started, the Phillies were plus 3,500 to win the World Series. So that equates to, if you put a $100 bet down, you would have won the 3,500 plus your 100 back if the Phillies win the World Series. That's the beginning of the season, which is a huge odd, by the way. Up through the NLDS, they were still at minus 3,000 to win the World Series. So you could have made a similar bet up to that point around the NLDS time. $100 got you $3,000 plus your 100 pack. Now they're, plus 150. So the odds went away. But I wonder how many people out there took advantage of, jumped on the Phillies, good fortune, so to speak, and maybe looking for a big payday if they win the World Series.
Don't know, Rich. I'm not a big betting guy myself. I understand I don't follow the betting game very well, but I understand there's a guy out there in Houston who has big money down, millions down on the Astros. Yeah. If they win, he's going to have some massive payoff. But let's keep him from winning. You know what I'm saying? Let's let him cry a little bit.
He's got a weird name. I think they call him Mattress Mac or something like that.
Mattress Mac, something like that, yeah.
He sells mattresses.
Good for Mattress Mac.
Makes bets. Here's that map, if you're watching our video version of the show, that was sent to me via email, and I just found it on Twitter. I'm astounded at the amount of Twitter data here and fan hashtags that they used to figure out that 80% of the country is rooting for the Phillies. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, they're rooting for the Phillies. This will be their toughest test yet, Rich. That series with St. Louis, the biggest obstacle for me was that they were on the road for all three games. And it's tough to beat a team in that kind of environment when the Phillies weren't actually entering the postseason hot. And the Cardinals are traditional power. They're traditionally difficult to beat in the postseason. And they had some, sentiment going with the final, appearances in the postseason of Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina and possibly Adam Wainwright, although he's now announced he's coming back. But, it just the stars seem to be lining up against the Phillies in that series, with it especially being on the road. But talent-wise, they were very comparable to St. Louis. So I wasn't overly concerned about St. Louis beyond the fact of, could they overcome that St. Louis crowd and the emotion and all that? And they were able to do it. Against Atlanta, I won't say I wasn't that concerned, but I wasn't overly concerned about Atlanta because they played a number of times during the season, and they basically battled even with the Braves during the season. And this is a very familiar NL East foe. So I really thought that, if the Phillies didn't win, they were going to give the Braves a battle. And turns out, of course, they did. With San Diego, it was obviously, again, a very even matchup. The two teams were two wild card teams. They were very identical in a lot of regards. It was just again, could they overcome that idea that they didn't have the home field advantage, and that each series they were able to win that one game on the road that allowed them to come home to, us maniacs, in the stands at Citizens Bank Park, which it's been proven, it's been to me, very obvious here in the postseason that the crowd at Citizens Bank Park has been the biggest factor of all of the postseason teams and home crowds. So I expect that to continue against Houston, but talent-wise, this is the toughest team I think they're going to run into. The Astros have 5, maybe 6 really high quality hitters in their lineup. You're talking about guys like Yordan Alvarez, who is one of the best hitters in the game all around. Kyle Tucker, who's one of the top young hitter, at least power hitters in the game. And he's a power speed guy, 30 homers, 25 steals in right field. He's just a fantastic player who fans might not know a lot about, but they're going to get to know over the next few days. They have a fantastic third baseman, Alex Bregman. Their shortstop is a rookie, Jeremy Pena. He was just the ALCS MVP. Came up with a couple of huge hits for them. He had 22 homers as a rookie during the regular season for them. And they got grizzled veterans, Jose Altuve, who's still there from their last World Series champion, Michael Brantley, who kind of had a down year this year, at least as far as power goes, but he's still a dangerous hitter. Yuli Gurriel, a Cuban guy, his power was down. He was a tough hitter last year, kind of down this year, but he did have 40 doubles too. So they have some real pop throughout this lineup. There are, maybe 2 or 3 places, center field, catcher, where they can kind of ease up a little bit, the bottom of the lineup. And I doubt they're going to get hurt. But the rest of that Houston lineup, they can do some damage. And the pitching staff for the Astros is just lights out, Rich. There's no weak link in that Astros pitching staff. For some of the other teams that they've faced, if you really look things over, there was a weak link or two. The Astros' weak links all have ERAs in the upper threes, which isn't bad. I mean, that's still below major league average ERA. So, this is a very, very talented ball club, and it's a very complete ball club. So, the Phillies are going to have their work cut out for them. But again, they're playing as well. The Phillies are playing as well as any team in baseball right now. So the Astros are going to have that work cut out for them. I think this is going to be a fantastic series. I'd be very the bravado in me wants to say Phillies in 5 again, but I'd be very surprised if this didn't go, at least 6 games, maybe 7.
Yeah. Yeah. As you said, the hitters are amazing. Kyle Tucker, right fielder, and I'm reading some of the Astros recapped press notes from 2022. Tucker did 30 home runs, and that was the same number that he hit the previous year. 107 RBIs, a career mark for him, high mark. And the only MLB player with 30 home runs and 25-plus steals in 2022. So he's speedy on the base paths, too. We're going to have to watch him if he gets on base. And as you said, they have some Jose Altuve, the little squirt, so to speak. He's a threat, even though he's getting a little older. Alex Bregman, still in the prime of his career. And that's how they ran the table in the playoffs here. They're 7-0 in the playoffs, and I hope they don't go 4-0 in the World Series because, as you said, the Phillies have found a good opponent. Originally, I thought it might be the Dodgers somehow getting intertwined with the Phillies and them facing them. I would have feared the Dodgers. But, yeah, as you said, I respect the Astros. I don't really fear them because I think the Phillies have an equal amount of talent on this team if they can exert that talent. Schwarber hasn't unleashed his full potential yet. And Hoskins came around. And these guys are in the prime of their season. They're in the prime of their careers. It could be the Phillies' time to just win it all. That it's a Cinderella team, And there's no reason for the Phillies to be here if you want to look at it that way. That they were the last team in the wild card. They didn't turn in an impressive season like the Astros did, but they have that weird chemistry. And with Thompson, this team is an oddball. It's almost like a 93 team, but they could win it all. I think they could run the table just as much as I think the Astros are good.
Well, I think the thing to remember, Rich, too, is it's not the same when you say, and there's been a lot of talk about this, and because of the seedings and things like that, and because the Phillies got the last wild card, there's been a lot of talk about, the best team doesn't always win. The best team didn't win. The best team this, the best team that. The Phillies are not the same team that they were in April and May. The Phillies went 65-46 under Thompson, counting their last win under Girardi. They were 20 games over 500 over the last 3 months of the regular season, 4 months of the regular season. And then, you see what they've done in the postseason. This is not a team that should be considered a major underdog. And if Houston wants to look at it that way, fine, more power to them. They're going to be from their end unpleasantly surprised when they run into this Phillies team. This is a very hot and very good Phillies team right now. They still have a couple of weaknesses. They're not the best defensive team in baseball. They're still in the bottom third of baseball defensively overall, but they've gotten better. They certainly have gotten better in center field. They've shored up their middle infield. Up the middle, they're a really good baseball team right now, which is where you have to be good defensively more than anywhere else. So this is, the pitching has shored up. The bullpen has largely gotten healthy and is they have 3 or 4 guys who can come in now and shut you down. So this is, especially in this kind of condensed, best of 7 series format where you don't have to worry about 162 games. This is a dangerous Phillies team.
Yeah, and at a certain point in this season, I really thought it was going to be a New York World Series. The Mets were on fire, very similar to the Astros, and then they fell apart in some manner. So I don't think I share your sentiment in that I don't think the Astros are an ironclad, dyed-in-the-wool favorite. I certainly don't think they should be at the odds that they're at, but their playoff results so far probably speak for that. But as you said, I think these two teams are coming into this even, and it's going to be the team that gets the hits, the team that gets the breaks to a certain extent, and that hot bat that, Bryce Harper, the Hoskins continuing, JT Realmuto. When JT Realmuto got on base the other day on Sunday, it was like it was all pre-planned that the Phillies were going to win. I had a feeling. He got on first, and then Harper just hit it out. It was just something that was in the air, Strange.
Realmuto's at bat, was clutch. He's down 0-2 in that at bat. So, the story that came out, of course, was, now it's going to be part of the legend, where Realmuto is coming out of the dugout of the bat and Harper's coming up behind him. And from behind him, Bryce says to JT, let's give them something to remember. And that was well heard throughout the dugout from a dozen people that were real close, and it came out in the media afterwards. But, I don't think that that's so much bravado from Bryce as it is confidence. He has confidence in himself, and especially the way he's playing right now. So I think in that moment, he's trying to not that he needs it. JT's an all-star and Gold Glover in his own right. He's a star in his own right. But Bryce, I think, was trying in that moment, which was a moment where hero was needed. They're down to, if they don't do something, this inning, they'll be down to their last 3 outs next inning at the bottom of their order. So I think Bryce was just trying to light that additional spark in JT, by saying, let's give him something to remember.
Let's go.
And JT goes up there and he battled. He's 0-2. And he fights he slashes a base hit, clean base hit to left field. And my thought process when that was going on was, he's done it so well this year. And there was a lot of talk coming into this series, Rich, about the Phillies being one of the best base stealing teams in the game, and San Diego not necessarily being the best team at shutting that down. And I don't think the Phillies really took advantage of that during the series. It's one thing I don't think they did as much as I thought they were going to do. It may just have been situational. I don't know. But I came up here. I thought JT doesn't want to, he wants to stay at first to, quote, leave a hole for Bryce, but there isn't much of a hole when Bryce bats because of the way they run the shift these days. Next year, that'll be more so the case. But I really was looking for JT to run there. I thought, this is the time. He's going to pick the right moment and he's going to go to second base. And now he'll be at a tie and run at second with, Harper, Muto, Bohm having a chance to drive him home. Worked out better than that, of course, thanks to Bryce. It's amazing. How about that Bryce at bat? I mean, he fouls off pitch after pitch after pitch. And then who was on the mound? Suarez when he hit that? Yeah. Or Garcia? I can't remember who he's batting against now.
Suarez, I believe. He just got the loss.
He spits on that 1-2 breaking ball that Suarez threw. The kind of pitch that when Bryce isn't going good, he'll swing it and miss, he'll offer at it and just swing and miss. And it was a great pitch, but Bryce was like, he just spit on it, And so when he spit on that ball, I'm like, he is locked in. I was just saying when he threw it, before he threw it, I'm saying, just leave something out over the plate, And he did. I couldn't believe it. When I saw the ball going, I'm like, before he even hit it, I'm thinking, my eyes were kind of lighting up like a pinball machine. And then when he hit it, it was just, when he hits them, sometimes from the angle that we're getting on television, you're not sure. Yeah. So my first thing when he hit it, it looked good, but then I look at him. I look at the batter because the batter usually knows. He knows when he got enough. And Bryce was just looking. He was just looking. He wasn't running. You know what I mean? He wasn't running. He was looking. Yeah. So he had to. It took him a second to adjust, but then he had to know that trajectory. He got it. And then I was just like walking around my living room, my arms up, trying not to wake my wife up. She was taking a nap at the time. So
yeah,
me and my dog were celebrating out here in the living room.
And then it was Bedlam at the bank, the great call from Scott Fransky. And I was listening to a lot of the games in the earpiece, in the headphones, or whatever you call them, the AirPods, at the ballpark. Of course, it's a minute and a half delayed, but I love the commentary, and that was epic, that announcement by Scott Fransky. And it's all not planned. It just came out the way it did, how could he plan it?
I had the game synced up myself, Rich. I had it synced up with my whatever they call my Amazon Dot, thing. Yeah. And I had Fransky in LA on the game there. I think the middle innings, Tom McCarthy came on and did it. But when the home run was hit, it was Fransky. And so that's what I was listening to. I had it synced up perfectly to the game. And man, what a fantastic call. Yeah. And as much as I didn't really like the call on the national feed, I heard some good things about it, so I went back to look at it later for the home run call, and that was a fantastic job done on it there. I think that his call was swing of his life, or something to that effect. Swing of his life, swing of a lifetime, something like that. And it was perfect. And then he just let it sit. He let the game sit. He let the crowd roar. Play it out, which is what you should do. Let the moment breathe, And thankfully, I think because he was probably upset and frustrated, Smoltz had nothing to say. So I was glad to hear him not start blabbering in his mouth, which he can do at times.
Yep. So we got the first two starters in for the World Series. Aaron Nola, Game 1. Zach Wheeler, Game 2. Nothing out of the Astros camp yet as of the time we're doing this podcast. It would have been nice to have that matchup to talk a little bit about. Is it going to be Verlander? I don't know. Will they save him for Game 2? Possibly. Or do they go right out with him and start him right off? So...
Well, they have options, Rich. Framber Valdez is fantastic for them. Verlander's probably the AL Cy Young Award winner this year. But Framber Valdez, Southpaw, has been fantastic for them. I would guess it's got to be one of those two in Game 1 and the other one in Game 2. Back here in Philly, I'm pretty sure next Monday night when my brother and I will be attending together, I would assume it's got to be Ranger Suarez, right, in Game 3 for the Phillies. That hasn't been announced yet, but got to be Ranger Suarez. And Houston has, 2-3 guys that they can pick from. So no matter who it is, it's going to be a tough starting assignment pitcher for the Phils.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for sure. Little World Series history since we're almost in the World Series here, just a couple days away. A lot of build-up leading up to this, a lot of celebrations and things, but World Series first here. This is from the World Series media guide. First time lights were used in the World Series was 1949, turned on at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. Top of the ninth inning, 4:50 p.m., in the fifth and final game. So that's some history there. They didn't need the lights till almost 5 p.m. First night game on the World Series, 1971. And those of us that are older and old enough, remember those day games during the World Series very prevalently. So that's an interesting fact. 1971 was the first night game, Game 4, Baltimore at Pittsburgh.
That's the first World Series that I really followed too, Rich. My first World Series memory, I remember the games being on in my house when I was just 8 years old. The previous World Series when Brooks Robinson made all his highlight plays for the Orioles in 1970. I have that hazy memory. And 71 was the first one where I really gotten into the game that year with the opening of Veterans Stadium. And 9 years old was really the first time I followed the Phillies, and that carried into the postseason. I remember that Baltimore-Pittsburgh World Series, seeing that in October 1971.
Wow. So continue on here with the World Series first. First time all games were played at night was 1985. So that was probably the time where the media has determined that, all these games need to be at 8 o'clock at night so you get the most watches and we make the most money. So that's when the first time that happened, 1985. And let me just pick one more here. First game played in a dome in the World Series, October 17th, 1987.
Well, you skipped right over the most obvious one, Rich, right before that. The first time it was all on artificial turf was right here in 1980. Phillies and the Royals.
All right.
No grass there.
You read it.
Was it Dick Allen? Was it Dick Allen that said, I don't want to play on anything and my horse can't eat? Some statement like that, about grass.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably went on the field in Veterans Stadium at one point in time, but it was pretty cool. It was a little spongy and, almost like a nice carpet, but it had some give to it.
Yeah, my brother played Pee Wee football for an organization down in South Philly, the Edward O'Malley organization, EOM. Uh-huh. And they won a couple championships in their weight division, and they were able to go to play games at Franklin Field and at the Vet during the early to mid 70s, I guess. And I remember going down to one of his games that was at Veterans Stadium. And at halftime of their game, when they were all with their coach or whatever, a bunch of us family members, we were out on the field at the Vet trying to kick field goals. And if you've ever, I was only probably myself, I was only like 12, 13. But if you've ever tried to go out and kick a field goal, you aren't a kicker or a football player, you realize just when you go out to try it like that, how difficult it is. You go out and you line it up and you try to do what you've been seeing people do on TV and you think it's easy. And then you're just like, go to kick it. forget about it. You know, balls are
like
shooting all over the field, and you just feel good if you could get one up in the air. You know.
Yeah, it's a lot easier
And
to look at than do.
And in 20 yards, Rich, 20 yards downfield doesn't sound like a big pass. 10 yards doesn't sound like a big pass. But when you're down on the field and you see it when you're live, you realize how far 10 yards is. And you're like, they got to go against like these 11 other behemoths to try to get 10 yards. It's like you really, when you're down there, you respect it, a lot more.
Oh, yeah. It's more real when you're down there on the field, for sure. I was on the Eagles field a couple weeks ago, just to get back to that. And, the goalposts, to me, look so wide on TV. But when you get down there, it's like, they're only about, this far apart. You got to kick it through there. It's not very far.
Tell you respect, for these pro athletes, when they do what they do under the conditions they do them.
Yep. All right, some more World Series nostalgia here, since you'll probably hear most of the meteor stuff on the media. So we'll go with this. Largest attendance by game in the World Series, 1947, in a Game 1 was 73,000 people. None of these years are recent. A Game 2, 70,000. New York, again, October 6, 1949. Game 3, 92,000 out in L.A. I guess that was out at the Rose Bowl.
We would break that Game 8 record, Rich, but there ain't going to be a Game 8.
Right. Yeah, that Game 8's going to stand for a long time, I think. The rest of time, maybe.
Yeah.
But look at those 92,000 fans in L.A., probably at the Rose Bowl.
Well, they used to play at the L.A. Coliseum, Rich, when they first went to L.A., before Dodger Stadium opened.
Pretty cool. Cool stuff here. Here's one with the Phillies in it. Largest attendance by series. This is interesting. 5-game series. 304,139. Baltimore versus Philadelphia. Largest attendance by season. Wow, that's an interesting number. Yeah.
Well, we used to get, at the Vet, you could get 65,000, or close to it, and it's somewhere in the 60,000s, at the Vet. And they did hit those marks during those 80 and 83, runs to the World Series. So that doesn't surprise me a little bit. You're not going to get that now because, you're only going to get 45, 46,000 at Citizens Bank Park. So.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You'll get them though. You will get 46,000 for for those 3 games, maybe 2, but certainly for probably 3.
They'll cram them in for sure. And I've noticed that the raffles that the Phillies run for charity are up to 100,000 plus. Which you get half of in the raffles. So, seen a lot of people taking advantage of that. I didn't win it yet, but
I'll be buying some Monday night.
Yeah, I'll probably get a little bit. We may be at Game 1 together Monday night, so hopefully we'll get back together maybe on Sunday, do another show. I figured, this will cover the first 2 games of the series, and then maybe Sunday we can get together and talk about the preview for Philly. Hopefully we'll be talking about a split, as we both agree that would probably be best for the Phillies. No guarantee that they'll still win a 7-game series, but you want to get off on a good foot and win at least one of those 2 games in Houston.
Yeah, the key for me, Rich, is I expect Nola and Wheeler to pitch well. Part of it is because they have no other choice right now. I mean, for part of the Phillies' formula to win is Nola and Wheeler pitching well. So I expect them to pitch well, especially with the kind of rest that they've had. For me, the key is going to be this offense of the Phillies against the very tough, very deep Houston pitching staff. If the Phillies can produce runs, they're going to win this series. If they lose this series, I believe it's going to be because I don't think it's going to be because their pitching implodes as much as it'll be because Houston's pitching just shuts them down. So. The Phillies' bats are the key to this series for me.
Yeah, and hopefully they can keep firing. I was a little concerned about this few days of rest, but I don't think I'm overly concerned. I think the Phillies know they're in the World Series. They need to be large in it. Everybody needs to contribute, and we'll see who actually does for this Phillies team 2022. Even if they don't win the World Series, and I don't want to say that because I like to be optimistic, the Phillies have given this area and baseball fans something to be happy about again, especially after coming off of this COVID 2-year monotony of, stuff that we didn't even know what was going to happen with this pandemic, and most of us has never been through one, thank God. And, baseball's back, and it's back in a big way in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and to address the two things you just said, the good thing I think about the other night is Houston won too. So their series ended the same time as ours, so they have that same layoff. You know what I mean, Rich? So if there's going to be a problem for being laid off for 3 or 4 days, both teams have it. You know what I mean? And then secondly, you're right about that. The feeling that this ball club has given the city, and while the regular season is in no way comparable, because the 1993 Phillies regular season was, I've said this ever since then, and I'll probably say it to my dying day. Watching this team now for 51, 52 years, the 1993 Phillies, who did not win a world championship, start to finish, that was my favorite season to watch from start to finish. There was just one incredible thing after another all year long for 7 months. It's just a shame, what happened at the end. But they didn't win the World Series. And I think you're right in saying that this team, with what they've accomplished in the postseason, I think that this postseason run in particular is something that fans aren't going to forget, especially younger fans who maybe post that 2008 to 11 run. Your younger fans, this is going to mean a lot to them for a long time. So now if they can win the World Series, that they're going to cement themselves in franchise lore permanently, because they're going for the third World Series championship in 100 and let me do my math, almost 140 years, this franchise. Yeah. So either way, I think you're right. This will be a team that is well remembered, and that it's going to be a beloved team.
Yep, for sure. And it generates those memories, and it generates increased interest in other players, good players that want to go on a winning team. The Phillies being one of them could help their off-season chances for landing a big free agent if they're going to be in the market for one, and they probably will be. But it does attract a higher quality player to want to be on your team. So,
yeah, we'll talk about that in the off season, but I think there's going to be some moves, Rich. I think they need a couple of moves, but right now let's focus on this. The guys who are here are, they're the guys who got to be the heroes. So let's root for them all, and then we'll talk about we'll dissect whether they should come back in 2023 or not later on.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck to the Phillies, starting up the World Series in just 2 days from the time we're doing the podcast on Friday night. 8:03 p.m. is the start time for every game. Makes it a little easier for you in the East. Matt, you gave me Phillies in 6. I'll agree with you. Phillies in 6. So that's our
I didn't say Phillies in 6, Rich. I just said it wouldn't surprise me if it went 6 or 7.
All right, then
you want an actual prediction?
Yes.
I said that this series, looked like it was going to more likely to go 6 or 7 games. I'm going to go, I'm going to go crazy, Rich. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy, right? Was that guy sweep. Cardinals announcer from years ago, Jack Buck? Yeah. I'm going to go Phillies in 4.
Are you kidding me?
I'm going to go Phillies in 4, Rich.
My God.
I'm going to go Nola and Wheeler.
I'm going to go to the sports book and put $100 on that, because it's going to pay off $10,000.
There you go.
All right, you heard it from Matt.
Phillies in 4.
Phillies sweep. Oh my God! And I'll go to the bank, not the Citizens Bank, but the real bank.
I'm going to be there on Monday night to watch them go up 3-0. We're going to be going bananas, knowing that we're on the doorstep of winning a World Series.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of Phillies Talk. Out there on Facebook and all over, wherever you're listening to the show, YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Stay with us in the off season. And, Matt, you have a great start to the World Series, and I'll talk to you soon. Don't
forget, follow at Phillies Bell on Twitter, at Phillies Bell on Twitter.
And, of course, fightingphillies.com. I almost forgot to give our little plugs out there. That's my blog. At Fighting Phillies on Twitter as well. So we appreciate the follows. I'm almost up to 1,000, and Matt's, what, about 5,000, Matt? Somewhere around there?
Oh, we're not worried about.
And you just disconnected somehow on the microphone, so we'll say goodbye for now. From
7,700, Rich.
70, only 7,700.
I don't know what happened there. I think I hit a mute button.
Yeah, you hit a mute button. All right, you take care, and we'll talk to you after Game 2. When the series will be heading back to Philadelphia.
Go Phils.
Go Phils.